In this video, we're looking at UFC 295. I'll give you my predictions, some of my favorite bets of the week, and we're going to look at every fight on this card, so make sure you watch until the end. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. If you're still asleep from the Jailton Almeida fight from last week, wake up. We have one of the best cards of the year on tap, and we have no time to waste. The best fight that could be made at light heavyweight today is this week, with Jiří Procházka looking to reclaim the title he vacated with a win over Alex Pereira. Both men are as dangerous as they come, and I can't remember the last time we've seen this much collective firepower when you consider the speed, the power, the placement, aggression from both sides. For Alex Pereira, he's had a ton of success since switching over to MMA after having one of the best kickboxing careers of all time. The new Glory Kickboxing Hall of Famer is 5-1 in the UFC. He won the middleweight title less than a year ago, and he's coming off a win over Jan Blachowicz, who was ranked 3rd in the world at the time, and he's a former champion. It's been a remarkable run in the UFC, something that we've never seen before. The guy's faced 5 unique opponents. The last 3 of them have been former, current, or eventual champions, and he's beat them all. A true Chad of the sport, and that lead left hand that he throws has to be the best weapon in MMA today.
Good, because he's...
No one's throwing it with as much power as he does, and since it's the lead hand, it opens up so much. He can use it to start combinations, he can use it as a check hook, he can use it on the break when they're in the clinch. And that's after he's blasting knees up the middle. The guy is a problem. Now on the other side, the former champion Jiří Procházka's mind is on a different level when it comes to combat. The man can do it all. We saw him give Glover Teixeira all kinds of issues on the mat, choking him out late in the 5th. We saw him pick up back-to-back knockouts over Volkan Oezdemir and Dominic Reyes to start his UFC career, with the one over Dominic Reyes being knockout of the year, and the other had Volkan Oezdemir looking like Peter Griffin falling down the stairs. What I like about him in this fight is that forward pressure that he fights with and that awkward movement. And I'm not talking awkward movement like you at the bar after a couple of drinks. I'm talking about the awkward enough movement where he's going to do things that Alex Pereira has probably never seen in competition before. And he's going to need to lean on that movement because he really needs to crowd the Brazilian here. He needs to minimize the leg kicks as best as possible. The leg kicks are what sets up everything else. And Alex Pereira throws a ton of leg kicks. Jiří Procházka hardly ever does. So when they're at the kicking range, Poatan has a huge advantage unless Jiří can eat up that space. But not only does he need to eat up that space, he probably has to wrestle here, and I say that because he gets hit a lot. Plus he leaves his chin out there a lot, and if he's already getting chopped down with the leg kicks, I see him having a hard time breaking Poatan's rhythm. And the last thing I'll say about this is Glover Teixeira is the last man to fight Jiří Procházka. Glover Teixeira is training Pereira, he's going to be in his corner. He already felt Procházka and knows what that's like. For those reasons, I feel like we have the more prepared fighter on the Pereira side this week. Jiří Procházka is also coming off of injury. And there's more that I could say about this fight, but you all know the drill. I'm not here to talk your ear off. We get in, we get out. That's what I think the Brazilian does this week. Give me Alex Pereira to win this fight by knockout and new. In the co-main event, we have another title up for grabs, and I love 2 title fights on a card, especially ones like these. There's enough gold going around to make Trinidad James jealous. We got Sergei Pavlovich fighting Tom Aspinall, and let me tell you something here. The line for the fight is wrong. We talked about this last week with Rodrigo Nascimento and Dontel Mays. The line was not nearly wide enough. We said the same thing about Vitor Petrino and hammered both of those bets on KunithMMA.com. Now we have a pick'em here, which is crazy because one side is so clearly going to win. And I have a lock here for UFC 295, and the L word is not one I use often.
Hey, honey! L for love.
And listen, I know you don't come to this channel for me to play both sides of the fence anyway. You come here for picks with conviction. And with that being said, the winner of this fight by first round knockout is Sergei Pavlovich. And if I'm wrong, you can let me have it in the comments, but I don't see it going any other way. Tom Aspinall, taking nothing away from the man, is extremely talented. I would consider him the more well-rounded fighter in this matchup, but he's against the best striker he's ever seen and the hardest puncher in the UFC today. And when I look at Tom Aspinall's run in the UFC, it's been impressive, but there are moments that stood out to me that give me confidence on the other side. First being the fight with Andrei Arlovski. He won that fight, but it was competitive, especially in the first round, and Andrei Arlovski was able to find the mark several times and escape the first round. Sergei Pavlovich would knock out Arlovski inside of 60 seconds. Then you look at the Curtis Blaydes fight, same deal. I know it was not that long, it was only a couple of seconds, but this man rushed into the pocket with his head firmly on the center line more than once and got clipped hard twice by Curtis Blaydes. Those same punches from Sergei Pavlovich put anybody down. At this stage in Pavlovich's career, it's going to take a wrestling heavy game plan, and I think that Tom Aspinall, while he's capable of that, is not going to do that. I see him using his boxing style, throwing those 1-2s down the middle, and it not ending well. well. I expect both men to land, of course, but Sergei Pavlovich is going to land a lot harder, and I see him closing this one out in the first round. Give me Sergei Pavlovich to win by knockout and new. Next, we're looking at a fight with Jéssica Andrade and Mackenzie Dern, and I so badly, when this fight was announced, wanted to play the underdog. Now, if you're watching this channel, you watch stuff like this, you knew when this fight got announced that Jéssica Andrade was going to be the underdog, and we knew that before Vegas put the lines out. That was obvious. And we know Jéssica Andrade is beyond her prime on a 3-fight losing streak, 25 fights into her UFC career. She has to be the underdog. And she's super active. We've talked about her on this channel countless times, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse and talk about her history of competition, fighting the best of the best. We know. What I liked for her in this fight specifically is the striking edge and the power that she could land on Mackenzie Dern if she's able to stuff takedowns. Because Mackenzie Dern at this point is the female Rodolfo Vieira. The striking is not good. The takedowns might be worse than the striking, but she is elite on the mat. But what I like for Mackenzie Dern is that she's figuring out ways to get these fights to the ground. Creative ways of pulling guard, even holding on to her opponents and kicking off the cage. She's doing whatever she needs to do to get the fight down into her world, and you gotta respect it. And it's obvious that Jéssica Andrade is not offering much off of the mat. I see her getting controlled fairly easily by Dern, and when this fight gets down there, I think it's over. Once Jéssica Andrade is on the mat, she's not going to get back up to her feet.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
And again, to revisit it, on the feet, I do think that she has the striking advantage, and I really want to believe in the power of Jéssica Andrade, but when you go back and look, you're forced to ask yourself, is the power all that it's cracked up to be? And this is a little thought exercise that I performed with Oscar the other day. I want you to think about this for me. Ask yourself how many knockdowns, not even knockouts, but how many knockdowns should a fighter have in 25 fights if powerful striking is what they're known for? I'll give you a second to think about it. Go on, tell me, how many knockdowns? Now, was the number that you were thinking of higher than 3? Because that's all she has in the UFC. 3 recorded knockdowns, and I understand that power is not only with striking, but that number stands out to me. Because the only way that she beats Mackenzie Dern, or the only way that she has a chance of beating her, is by getting respect on the feet. But even then, Mackenzie Dern has a hell of a chin, and we've seen her consistently get better. You have 2 fighters at very different points in their career. One is still on the way up, and one is very much on the way down. And that's tough because Jéssica Andrade is such a legend, but because of that status that she has, because of her run in the UFC, because she was a former champion and she's still young, she's still matched up with the better fighters in the division. It's kind of like skill-based matchmaking in a video game where she's no longer fighting the women that she should be, but because of her status, she still is. So I see Dern getting it done here with her grappling and her control. She only has a 50% finish rate in the UFC, but Jéssica Andrade has been finished in 80% of her losses. So I expect Mackenzie Dern to find the submission this week. Give me Mackenzie Dern to win this fight by submission. Next, we have a fight with Matt Frevola and Benoit Saint-Denis. This is the best card of the year. Next, we have a fight with Matt Frevola and Benoit Saint-Denis. This is the best card of the year. Crazy fights up and down the card, and it looks like this one is going to be a war. Both these guys fight like they're double parked, animalistic. You ever see bears fight? It's crazy. It's on site, and I think that's what we're going to get this week. Both men are going to try to take the center of the octagon and let it all hang out. Matt Frevola does his best work with his hands. He has ridiculous power, and he's really hitting his stride as an MMA fighter. He's riding a 3-fight winning streak, all knockouts, all inside the first round, and you don't see this stuff at lightweight all that often. He even knocked out Drew Dober last time. Who would have expected that? No, Oscar, I know I predicted that. I'm trying to be humble. It's a new thing, and I'm much better looking than you. I just have to throw that out. Matt Frevola throws them bricks. You look at that fight with Geronimo Valdez, knocked him down 4 times. He looked like he was hurting him every time he landed, made quick work of a Zaitar, and then Drew Dober, one of the best chins we've ever seen. Good night. On the other side, Benoit Saint-Denis is going to be throwing hard punches as well, and even harder kicks to the body. He's going to be looking for takedowns here, looking to get this fight to the ground, and on the mat, he has been nothing short of dominant throughout his career. And he could have a lot of success with his wrestling this week. We've seen Matt Frevola taken down multiple times. We've seen Matt Frevola give up 10 takedowns to Arman Tsarukyan. But to give up 10 takedowns means you're getting back up to your feet a whole lot. And Matt Frevola is very good at that. He's good at staying urgent when he's on bottom. He's a grinder, and he's going to fight tooth and nail to get back to his feet so he can let his hands go, and that's what he needs to do this week. And frankly, in the pocket, I don't know anybody at 155 pounds who's landing with this much heat right now, and Benoit Saint-Denis can get sucked into a brawl. We saw that last time out against Thiago Moises. There were several situations where he had Moises up against the fence, he was throwing hooks, he was brawling with him, and Moises was landing on his chin over and over again. And if Matt Frevola lands in the same spot, it's over. This is going to be a crazy fight for as long as it lasts. I don't see this going beyond the second round. Both guys have a ton of momentum, but I'm going with the hometown guy. Matt Frevola gets it done this week. I see him landing one of those big hooks right on the button, putting Benoit Benoit Saint-Denis out. Give me the steamroller. Give me Matt Frevola by knockout. I mean, seriously, you gonna keep giving me this dog money on Matt Frevola? Fine, give me it. That's exactly the kind of bet that we'll be looking for with the official betting guide on KunithMMA.com. And for all the official bets, DraftKings strategy guide, lineup optimizer, access to the community, everything that comes with it, you can visit KunithMMA.com, grab yourself a membership. Let's go. Next, we're looking at a fight with Pat Sabatini and Diego Lopes, two grapplers who are going to be testing one another's jiu-jitsu this week. Pat Sabatini coming off of a submission win over Lucas Almeida in a fight that was complete one-way traffic. He took no damage, controlled Almeida for the entire fight, and he needed that win in a big way after getting the doors blown off him by Damon Jackson in a spot that nobody saw coming, really. And that was big because it ended his winning streak in the UFC. Now, for Pat Sabatini, he does a great job in the clinch. He kicks your legs out from under you, he messes with your balance, and he gets men to the ground and does a great job of staying there. My biggest issue with him is how much he prioritizes position over submission. It's going to lead to him winning more minutes, but at the same time, if somebody gets back up to their feet in the last 60 seconds, put something on him, I could see him losing rounds that way down the line. Now, the strategy is effective, but frankly, some of his fights end up being boring. And I say that to say this, on the other side, Diego Lopes is the opposite of boring. This guy is not afraid to let his hands go on the feet. He's also throwing up a lot of submission attempts off of his back. He gave Movsar Evloev, one of the best fighters in the division, hell in a short notice debut. His stock went way up after that, and he follows that up with making quick work of Gavin Tucker, and I do have to say that Diego Lopes has looked the part. He looks like he can give a lot of guys trouble in the UFC with that crazy submission game off of his back. My issue with him, however, is that he believes in that submission game so much. And when you do, sometimes you get into a situation where you're comfortable being put on your back, and against somebody like Pat Sabatini, who's going to mind his P's and Q's, sit on top of you, wait. It's going to be tough to find a submission, especially from guard. You're not going to armbar Pat Sabatini from guard. You're not going to get Pat Sabatini in a triangle choke. So Diego Lopes is probably going to be fine letting him take him down because he's got all the confidence in the world that he's going to be able to finish him, but Pat Sabatini's not making a whole lot of mistakes. And I can honestly see Diego Lopes maybe wrapping up a guillotine, maybe wrapping up a triangle choke and squeezing on it as hard as he can, but Pat Sabatini remaining calm, working from one position to the next, eventually escaping the round. We've seen fighters do that and gas out. I think that can happen to Diego Lopes here if Pat Sabatini goes full wet blanket on him. I see Pat Sabatini grinding out a win with his wrestling, with those trips in the clinch. Takedowns should come easy and often, and even when things aren't looking great, he'll find a way to get himself in top position once again. I foresee about 8 to 10 minutes of control time in this fight and a win for him on the scorecards. Give me Pat Sabatini to win this fight by decision. Next, we're looking at a fight with Steve Erceg and Alessandro Costa, but before we do, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. All great ways to support the channel, and if you want to go a step further, share this with somebody you know is going to be watching the fights this week. Alessandro Costa is taking this fight on short notice and paying those New York State taxes. Bad move, Mr. Costa. Take it from me, I would know. But if he gets the win, it's not a bad night, and I think he's live for the win here, although Steve Erceg is a tough task. He's got a granite chin. He keeps moving forward even if he's getting hit with clean shots. He's coming off of a massive upset over David Dvorak where he cashed as a big underdog and improved his winning streak to 9. And I will say that while the winning streak is long, it's impressive. It's not against the highest caliber of talent outside of David Dvorak. Alessandro Costa, on the other hand, picked up a win on Contender Series. He beat a sneaky veteran in Jimmy Flick last time out, and he shared the cage with Amir Albazi, who's one of the best fighters in the world. Now, he didn't have a modicum of success in that fight, but sharing the octagon with somebody of that caliber is valuable in one way or another. But again, going back to that chin of Erceg, that's one of his strongest qualities, or at least the one that stands out to you the most, because he's getting touched up. He's eating punches like nerds rope. But how many times have we talked about this on the channel? How many times have we discussed the fact that if a guy is known for his durability, that's not necessarily a good thing? You can have weaponized durability like Nate Diaz or something like that, but at the same time, it's not a good thing. That just means that you're getting touched up, and I would rather put my money on the guy who hasn't been knocked out because he's got great defense, good head movement, versus the guy who hasn't been knocked out because he's a zombie. To me, that just means that nobody landed on you the right way yet. Same thing that we talked about a minute ago with Matt Frevola and Drew Dober. He landed on the button, knocked him out. It happens, even for the best of them. I like Costa at plus money here. Definitely a bet I plan on taking this week. I think he has a strong pace throughout this fight as well, despite it being on short notice, and I think he just lands the harder strikes, gets the bigger moments, and wins this fight by decision. Next, it's Baby Shark Fight Week. Let's go! She's fighting Lupita Godinez, and if you've watched this channel for a while, you know that Tabatha Ricci has been nothing but good to us. We pick her every time. It's easy. It's for good reason. She's out grappling all of her opponents. She's got 17 13 takedowns in her last 4 fights. She's been able to control these women. She goes out there, she doesn't get out grappled herself, and I don't see her getting out grappled by many in this weight class. She's been super consistent. We've cashed some pretty big bets on her throughout the year, but we might be breaking the cycle this week because Lupita is a dog. That's right, Lupita Godinez is typically the one doing the offensive wrestling, but I see her avoiding that this week because the clearest path to victory for her is just keeping this fight standing in boxing with Tabatha Ricci. I see Godinez having much cleaner hands, landing more strikes, and keeping this fight at the range that she wants. And she may look for takedowns, but she's going to probably sit in the guard, play it safe, and no matter where this fight takes place, if it's on the feet, if it's on the ground, I think that she's going to be calling the shots. And I know, we all love Tabatha Ricci, I know. But Lupi's a bad matchup, frankly, and the women that are going to beat Lupi Godinez are strong strikers or those who are going to be able to stuff her takedowns, and while Tabatha Ricci is great, she's neither of those things. So that's why I like Lupi to win this week, and I think she wins this fight by decision. Next, we're looking at a fight with Nazim Sadykhov and Viacheslav Borshchev. Let me tell you something, nephew. The line ain't wide enough. If a smart game plan is followed, this fight is one-way traffic because Viacheslav Borshchev is on the Mount Rushmore of poor takedown defense, and Nazim Sadykhov should have no issues getting this fight to the mat. Now on the feet, Viacheslav Borshchev is a problem. He's got 3 wins in the UFC, all by way of knockout. He's one of the heaviest-handed guys in the division. He rips the body, and Nazim Sadykhov stands right in front of guys. That's concerning, and not many guys are going to be able to go strike for strike with Borshchev, and if you feel like that's the way this fight is going to go, you hammer the underdog here. But if you believe Nazim Sadykhov is going to fight the proper game plan, take the path of least resistance, he can make this one look easy, I promise you that. Coming out of the gym that he's coming out of, I don't see him wasting a whole lot of time on the feet. I see him getting takedowns early and often, and I know that hasn't been something that he's done a lot of in the UFC, but it's so clearly the way to beat Borshchev that I don't see this fight going any other way. And on the mat, he does have solid jiu-jitsu, especially if he's able to grab the fence and reverse position like he did against Terrence McKinney. No, but in all seriousness, I do believe he's more well-rounded, and if he has the chin to withstand that heat on the feet and get this fight down to the mat, I see him finding a finish there. So give me Nazim Sadykhov to win this fight by submission. Next, we're looking at a fight with Jared Gordon and Mark Madsen, one of the easiest buttons you will click all week. Both these guys are looking to get back in the win column. Mark Madsen is coming off his first career loss. He was out-grappled completely by Grant Dawson, controlled for most of that fight, submitted in the 3rd round, and I feel like that is the last we see of him. And obviously not the last time we see him fight, but I think that's the last we see of him on his rise. I don't think that Mark Madsen is winning any more fights in the UFC. You heard it here first. He's done. Now, does losing to Grant Dawson mean that you're cooked? Absolutely not. You're cooked when you're 39 years old, you've been wrestling your whole life, which is one of the hardest sports ever, and you're trying to fight guys in the UFC. Listen, if he's not getting takedowns, he's relegated to a jab and maybe a leg kick. And in his UFC run, he's fighting guys like Vince Pichel, who he laid and prayed to a decision win, Clay Guida in a fight that was Austin Hubbard, who's no longer in the UFC. Like, I don't think that we're going to see him string together wins, especially in this weight class. Now he's got Jared Gordon, who is going to beat him up. For a while, Jared Gordon was considered chinny. I think over the last couple of years, he's beaten the allegations. But Jared Gordon can win a gritty fight. He can win a dirty fight. He can win a brawl. And I don't think that Mark Madsen is going to be able to stand up to that kind of pressure for 3 rounds, especially if he's making Mark Madsen work in the first 2. If Mark Madsen's looking for takedowns, Jared Gordon's defending him. Or if Jared Gordon tries to put Madsen on his back, I think that he can have a lot of success with his own takedowns. But where his bread gets buttered this week is definitely in the clinch. And I'm talking like the 3rd, 4th minute of these rounds where just ripping to the body, uppercuts upstairs, pushing him back up against the fence, just bullying him. I think that Jared Gordon is going to bully Mark Madsen this week, and I think he's going to win a decision. Even if Mark Madsen gets takedowns early, I think that Jared Gordon's just going to keep working back up to his feet, and I think we see Mark Madsen wilt like cooked spinach. So give me Flash, give me Jared Gordon this week to win by decision. Next, we're looking at a fight with John Castañeda and Kang. John Castañeda beat Muin Gafurov last time out. The jury's still out on that guy because he got packed up by Said Nurmagomedov, but that happens to a lot of people. But he looked good in that fight. He was able to use his wrestling, he was able to land with power, and we've seen John Castañeda now knock down his last 4 opponents. I'm still very iffy on Castañeda. It's hard to see where his skill set is at because when you watch these fights back, I mean, the opponents and the performances are very inconsistent. He's outstruck almost 3-1. Nathaniel Wood looks great, and he loses that fight pretty cleanly. Then he knocks out Eddie Wineland. At 2021, Eddie Wineland's getting knocked out quite a bit. Then he beats Miles Johns, which is by far the best win of his career. He knocks him down. He chokes him out in the 3rd round with the arm triangle. You gotta love that for John Castañeda. Now you're like, okay, the guy's on his way up. But he gets completely broken against Daniel Willycat, where he's having a lot of success early, and then Santos just puts it on him, and he's death gassed by the 2nd round. He gets finished in round 2, and now he picks up the pieces, beats Gafarov, who is now 0-2 in the UFC. So a lot of question marks for me surrounding John Castañeda. Now on the other side, you have Kyung Kang, who can do everything. He's very precise with his striking. He's got a lot of power. He can lean on his wrestling when he needs to, and he does a good job of taking the back. And when you look at his losses in the UFC, at least the last 2, against Ronnie Yaya, a couple of lapses in judgment lose him that fight, but he easily could have won if he just minded his P's and Q's and didn't give up crucial takedowns. In that fight against Ronnie Yaya, he could have won that fight if he just fought with a better game plan, let his hands go a bit more. He was easily winning that fight on the feet, but he just let too many important moments slip by. And against Ramos back in 2018, the lasting image that you have of that is him really taking it to Ramos in the 3rd round. So a lot of people feel like Kyung Kang probably won that fight. But what you're not going to see is somebody dominate him, and that's what stands out to me the most. I feel like when John Castañeda has a lot of success, it's when he's in the driver's seat. But like we saw in the Daniel Santos fight, he can wilt under that pressure, and I feel like Kyung Kang is going to be able to land the counter strikes when he needs to. He's going to look for takedowns of his own. He'll be the fresher fighter in the 3rd round. I don't think that John Castañeda is picking up his 5th straight knockdown here, so give me the underdog, give me the older man, give me Kyung Kang to get it done this week. I think he wins by submission, and I don't think it's an early submission like we're used to seeing out of him when he does win that way. I think it's going to be a late submission because he's going to lean on that grappling. I think John Castañeda is going to be real tired come the 3rd round, and I think that Kyung Kang wins this fight. Next, we have a spot that need not overthinking. Joshua Van making his 2nd walk in the UFC. He's fighting debutant Kevin Borshchev this week, and I think that Joshua Van is going to light him up. We saw him last time out float on Zolgas Zumagulov, and not a lot of guys do that, especially guys that are 21, 22 years old making their debut. That's a tough spot. But talk about rising to the occasion. This guy went out there, put hands on Zolgas Zumagulov. He looked great. The output was good. He had a lot of power. He looked like he was going to finish that fight in multiple spots. I was really impressed with him, and when I look back on my notes, I do have that if Joshua Van's got a good matchup next time out, we're going to hammer that, and that's what it looks like this week. Kevin Borshchev did win on the Contender Series, but prior to that, he was fighting some plumbers, man. Let me tell you that. And there's nothing wrong with being a plumber. They make a lot of money. There's a lot of opportunity in that trade right now. All I'm saying is if you're an MMA fighter and a plumber, you're probably getting knocked the fuck out. I feel like me saying that on video is like when John Anik curses or something like that. You're probably like, oh, Kunith, no. But yeah, I think that Kevin Borshchev, somebody who's used to having his way on the feet, used to seeing guys crumble when he hits them, is not going to be able to have that same kind of success this week. Joshua Van showed maturity way beyond his years with his distance management, his decision making, his shot placement, everything. A lot to like about the young guy, and I think that he gets it done this week, probably by decision. And next we're looking at Jamal Emmers versus Denis Bazookia. You talk about a victim here. Jamal Emmers is a victim of robbery in broad daylight. You can argue that he should have gotten the nod over Giga Chikadze. If you feel that he lost against Jack Jenkins, you're smoking the zaza. There's no way. Cleanly, clearly, absolutely beat Jack Jenkins and got robbed in that fight. Before that, absolutely exposed Hussein Askabov, lost to Pat Sabatini. He got caught with the submission. No shame in that. Happens to a lot of people. But you talk about a guy in Jamal Emmers who's extremely well-rounded, who makes a lot of good decisions in there, and really should have a better record in the UFC than what you see on paper. And he's a massive favorite over Denis Bazookia, who we thought could get it done against Sean Woodson. He was bad, man. He got taken down a lot in that fight. He got controlled a lot in that fight, and now he's fighting a better grappler in Jamal Emmers, who I think is going to take him down at will. We've seen Jamal Emmers use that big frame of his to get his opponents down to the ground time and time again. He does good work in the clinch, and at range he throws good kicks. So I think Jamal Emmers gets it done, makes it look easy, wins a clean decision as long as he's not robbed once again. And if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I will see you later in the week for final picks. Let's go.